Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Thursday, uh, September the 8th, 2016. Good to have you out here for our first of two shows today, our second of three shows this week, and the return, the season premiere of the In the Spotlight Football Blitz, which I was weird, strangely calling the Gridiron Grind on Tuesday night, and nobody corrected me. Then again, nobody corrected me about the fact that the first 20 minutes on Tuesday night we had no sound. I was talking and nobody was hearing me. So we're all stripping. It's the first week back after the summer, and I guess we're all kind of out of it a little bit. All right, so here we are, the first football blitz of the football season. Obviously, college football got itself going last weekend, Labor Day weekend. The NFL gets its start here tonight with the kickoff, and then, of course, week one will extend through Sunday, and then, of course, Monday Night Football will give you two games on Monday night. So lots to talk about. Obviously, we'll do a real overview of the season, not like a comprehensive preview or anything. I don't think anybody really needs that, but we'll do that, and we'll kind of set the stage for tonight's game for week one, make some predictions, all that good stuff here tonight. Or here today, I should say. And we'll also dabble a little. Now, I did do this on our primetime show before last weekend, because last week was obviously the start of college football. I kind of went through some games, highlighted some of the big games. It was a big weekend of college football, and kind of gave you some picks and stuff like that. We will do that again tonight. I want to make an effort to try to do a little bit more college football. It is more interesting now with the playoff system, so I guess more people want us to talk about it, so we will. We will do a little bit with that. And I'll also give you a little bit of an idea on the season. I didn't really do that last week because we kind of in passing looked at the first weekend of the season. I'll give you a kind of an overview of the season with that as well here today. But first, as always, at the top of the show, I want to remind you all the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show. You can have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. You can come up with your own hashtag as long as it's not disrespectful or offensive. Or you can create your own hashtag and do hashtag IT Spotlight. Well, as I said, you can come up with your own hashtag. Wow, I missed my cue there. I apologize. I'm repeating the same thing I just said. You can create your own hashtag as long as it's not disrespectful or insulting. Or you can use one of the hashtags that we ask you to use if you'd like. Hashtag IT Spotlight 411. Hashtag IT5, that's our 5th anniversary on the air hashtag, or for this show, hashtag ITS Football Blitz. You can use any one of those if you'd like. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. Make sure you like our page upon finding it. This is the first of two shows, obviously Football Blitz right now. Tonight will be a show dedicated completely to the In the Spotlight TV Awards. We will announce the nominations for the TV Awards tonight, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Plus and YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We'll also give you the information you need to participate in the live voted awards, those awards that will be voted on live during our TV Awards broadcast on Thursday, September 22nd. So tonight is a big show. You'll want to make sure that you tune in for that. And one other reminder to those that might just be Football Blitz fans and don't really care for our primetime show. This will be our last, and this is our first Football Blitz show back, and this will be our only Football Blitz show of this season on Google Hangouts. For those that do not know, Google Hangouts is moving to YouTube Live, so we'll be on YouTube Live fully next week. And again, as I mentioned on Primetime Show Tuesday, we'll also be making a transition back to just being an audio podcast over the next few weeks. Sometime in October is the current target for that. So do keep all that information in mind. We'll keep you updated throughout the process and make sure you all know when all this is going to happen and all that stuff along the way. Now, this is, as I mentioned, and obviously most of you know, this is the first, this is the return of the Football Blitz. And I dabbled with whether I was going to bring it back or not, because this is hard to do during the day. And, it really had to be about timing and did I have enough time and could it work out? And I ended up just thinking that it was going to be okay to do it for another season. And once you commit to it, you got to pretty much do the season. You can't just, I just think it works out better. People respond to it well. It's better than taking time out on our primetime shows and doing it and then going well over our allotted time. You know what I mean? So it actually works out well. It gives us time to focus on other things on the primetime shows and all that kind of stuff. So we're back here for another season, but things are going to be different this year. And anybody that's been watching or listening to uh, the show for the last 5 years, and of course the last couple seasons that we've done this football show, you know that we have a framework, and usually when we do these shows, we start off, we look back at last week, and then look ahead, and we go over a lot of the games, stuff like that. The one thing I want to try to do now is try to be more efficient. I think we've gotten a little bit more efficient with the primetime shows. I want to get more efficient with the football shows because, I think it's easy, and many of you, if you listen to enough talk radio or you watch enough sports talk and stuff, I think a lot of you know this. When you talk sports, okay, any kind of sport, all right, unless you're talking about a controversial issue, it can end up going into recap, like rehashing and talking about things that, that you maybe seen the highlights of already. And look, you do have to sometimes cite plays and points in a game and stuff like that. But I think it's important that, I think it just makes things a little bit better if you avoid that as much as possible. I don't listen or watch myself back. I don't like that. I think because I'm too much of a perfectionist like that, so I don't do that. But to that end, I know for a fact that if I did, I would see a lot of recapping, a lot of like, oh my gosh, we spent 5 minutes talking about the same game. Like, why we can't do it? There's a lot of things that there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of things that we could still talk about. There's a lot of things that I think we just don't have the time to talk about because we spend too much time on things that we shouldn't. So what I want to try to do is streamline things, focus on the most important things, most important aspects of the big, focus on the big games, and then move forward. And try to make this a little bit more efficient and allow for more time to talk about maybe issues related to the games themselves, and allow more time to talk about decisions made during those games and that kind of thing, because we don't always have the time to do that because we spend so much time talking about logistics and touchdown. I hope I'm getting across what I'm trying to say here. We're just going to try to really kind of get rid of the filler and stop going on and on about certain aspects of things. And, just try to make this as efficient, because I recognize, and I've always said this since we started this show, I understand that if people are watching or listening to this live during the day, that you're taking time out of your day. You might be at work or something like that. I understand you don't have a lot of time. All right, this ain't like our primetime show where you might be sitting at home just relaxing. You have a little bit more time. This is a little bit different. I always like to try to keep this as short as I possibly can. I don't really put a timer on it. I don't say, 2 hours and we're done. Maybe I should. Might help. But I don't do that. But at the same time, I always say that I want to try to keep this as concise and as short as possible. Not because I'm lazy. Not because I don't want to give you all enough comprehensive coverage, but because I don't want to waste your time. You're taking the time out to join us here. I don't want to waste your time just going on and on about things and taking more time than we really need to. So that's the basis for that. So you'll notice some things this season that are a little bit different than what we've done in the past with the football shows. We're going to be moving a little bit quicker through topics. We're going to be focusing on a little more college football. We're going to bring that into the conversation. Another aspect that's be, as you all know, over the years we made football picks, and the football picks were always a competition between myself and Jeff Tech. Jeff Tech is our old technical producer. He was with us from Talk Show when we over the years, and me and him always had a competition over football picks. He's no longer with the show. We kept it going last fall, even though we transitioned to Google Hangouts and YouTube, and he wasn't with us. We still kept it going. He's no longer with the show. After that, we basically just did it to finish out the season. He's no longer with the show. Therefore, we're not going to do we can't, really do the picks the same way. So I'm just going to simply make the picks on my own and just keep track of them, or just make picks and, it's not going to be as competitive. It might even be a little boring, but you know what? It's just the way it's going to have to be, because unless you have somebody to work off of, you really can't do that. So that's going to be a change here going forward. And most of the time, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, most of the time we'll be doing this show on a Friday, like we always did. That's why I used to call it Football Friday. This week we're doing it on a Thursday because the NFL season kicks off tonight. I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. Obviously, there'll be some weeks we might have to do it earlier or later. Depends on how it all gets hashed out with holidays, like Thanksgiving week. Obviously, we won't do a show on Thursday or Friday of that week. We'll probably and obviously there's football games on Thursday and Friday, so we'll probably end up doing it on Wednesday or maybe even Tuesday of that week. We did that last year, I think. So, but this plan for it to be usually every Friday unless otherwise noted, and we'll obviously give you notice on if any changes have to happen and all that kind of stuff going forward. So with all that being said, again, things it'll be a little bit different, but I think it'll make for a more enjoyable and better show. So with all that being said, let's get down to business here. I don't want to keep going on, ramble on. I already feel like I'm rambling on. So we're going to start with the NFL. We're going to start by kind of looking at what we're looking ahead at this season here, which starts tonight with the kickoff on NBC. And look, you look back at last season, it ended up, you go into the season and you can sit there and you look at teams, you go, all right, the usual suspects like the Steelers, the Patriots, those kind of teams are usually right in there, right in play. And then you got some teams that, you never can be sure of that might be close, but maybe aren't. And they're kind of perennial, like middle tier teams like the Chargers and the Chiefs, and stuff like that. You look at, again, and then you got a group of teams that you never know that are having bottom feeders like the Browns or the Jaguars, where they finally break through. And there's always a couple teams that surprise the hell out of you and come out of nowhere and do something and become competitive all of a sudden. And that happens every year. There's usually at least one or two teams. Some stay in it the whole way, and some don't. And that's just the way it works. That's just the way it goes. So, it's a new season. Every fan has hope. Every fan dreams of what the season can bring. And that's the beauty of a new season. And, as you look at this year, and, we talked about this the last couple of years, the NFL in recent years has giving you some great matchups the first couple of weeks. It used to be you start off a little bit easy at a lot of these teams and then play your big rivals till later. Now you get games like the Giants and the Cowboys early and stuff like that, So it makes things interesting. They get you right. College football is doing it now. College basketball. They want to try to get your attention right out of the gate. And I like that. I think that's good. It gets you interested right away. So if you look at week one, I don't think there's as many big games. There are a few, but there are some games of intrigue and some games that we might look back on at the latter part of the season and go, all right, those end up being big games. I think a lot of these games are between teams we just don't know what we're going to get. Some teams that took a fall last year, and we're waiting to see if they rebound from that. You look at a perennial contender like Baltimore, who suffered a lot of injuries last year and fell off. Their matchup with Buffalo this week, that game might end up being huge. I mean, Buffalo took a step forward, I thought, last year. Many people think they're going to take another step forward this year. Well, they're playing a team in the Ravens who are looking for redemption. So that's an intriguing matchup that could end up being huge later down the line and giving us some idea of what we might get from either one of these teams this year. Is Tampa Bay. Tampa's a team that a lot of people think could be a sweeper. What happens with them this year? They play an Atlanta Falcons team that's a perennial contender in the NFC South. The Bengals and the Jets, that could be a potential playoff matchup. You talk about how the Jets and how improved they were last year, and the Bengals and how, every year we're waiting for them to kind of have that big breakthrough. And it's just, they kind of work a little bit forward, but then fall right off the pace. Philly's in rebuilding mode. What we're going to get with them without Chip Kelly? Chip Kelly goes to the 49ers. What's going to happen there? The Colin Kaepernick situation, which I'm not going to talk about because it's too derisive, I think. How is that situation? Is that going to prove to be too much of a distraction for this team? Green Bay, now that they're fully healthy after struggling with health for most of last season, will they return and be a force? What becomes of Denver now as you go into this season with no Peyton Manning and no Brock Osweiler, who was the heir apparent, really, as you saw down the stretch last year, and they lost him. The Vikings, their quarterback situation is a mess right now due to injury. What happens there? Is their season pretty much done before it even starts? So the Titans show improvement. A team that 2 years ago, a lot of people thought was going to jump into the fray and be a playoff contender. The Rams, who last year surprised a lot of people and played spoiler in a lot of ways for some teams in the NFC West. Will they take now that they're in LA? That's obviously going to be a big thing. What happens with them? Do they become a playoff team? That's a sweeper that everybody's got their eye on, and they're a team that I think will maybe probably actually their team I think makes the playoffs. To be honest, they're my surprise pick. Although they wouldn't surprise too many people if they did make it. Will the Browns be much improved? Finally, will the Saints redeem themselves? How about the Raiders, who many people thought looked better last year? The Chiefs, who under Andy Reid last year, a lot of people think the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. Denver, well, I mean, they certainly have a chance. You will see how good they look if you think about it. If the Chiefs hadn't gone off to the start they did last year, or been so topsy-turvy early on, they probably would have won the division last year. We might have been talking about things being different last year at the end of the season. I mentioned San Diego. Will they take a few steps forward here and go from middle-tier team to being in the mix and doing some things? I mean, Phillip Rivers has to decide what his legacy is going to be, because right now he's constant. They kind of right now they've gotten themselves to being at least competitive, but they always kind of miss out. What will we get from Miami this year? Seattle, they had a nice comeback year after kind of falling off a tad last year. Detroit, same deal. What are you going to get from Detroit this year? The Colts, last year was a year that they just couldn't. It just everything that could go wrong went wrong for the Indianapolis Colts last year, and yet they still made it. But you talk about the injuries to Andrew Luck and having problems in the offensive line. We'll see what you get with them. They get a test with Detroit, who's going to Detroit at least going to be scoring. New England has no Tom Brady for the first 4 weeks. That's going to be a storyline, and they get a tough test on Sunday Night Football against Arizona, who everybody expects to compete this year as they did last year, and probably win the NFC West, or at least be up there with Seattle. How will the Giants look without Tom Coughlin? Dallas without Tony Romo? What happens there as they turn to a rookie at quarterback? I think we can put to rest the idea of Jason Garrett being on the hot seat, because, without Romo, I mean, I don't think anybody has really much in the way of expectations. So much of the season is just going to depend on. So much of the season is just going to depend on really what the rookie quarterback does. It's pretty much that's you go as far as you go. If he can keep them afloat, that NFC East could be a crapshoot. If everybody it tends to be one of those divisions where everybody stays around 500. If Dallas can stick around there, then I guess they have a chance. But who knows? The Redskins found their quarterback in Cousins, and really, to me, that's going to end up being the biggest thing about the NFC East is what happens with the Redskins. If Kirk Cousins throws the ball the way he had last year, and the Redskins play consistent football, the Redskins run away with that division, because the Eagles are going to be kind of rebuilding without Chip Kelly. The Giants, in a way, are kind of rebuilding. So really, in my mind, it comes down to the Redskins and the Cowboys. And if the Redskins, if the rookie quarterback surprises and plays well, the Cowboys can easily win that division. And If they don't, then they could fall off, and it's the Redskins to lose. Because those are the only two teams that I think are not really truly rebuilding and have enough talent to really be the most consistent. And that's really what you look for when you have that kind of situation. Is you look for a team that has the best potential to be consistent in that kind of situation. And Dallas can, even without Romo, if they get something out of the rookie quarterback, because they got a lot of talent in other positions. And the Redskins have Cousins, a good solid defense, and they do have some playmakers there. So the two teams that that have the best chance to be consistent and probably have the best chance to win the NFC East as a result are Dallas and Washington. If the Redskins get off to a good start and Cousins throws the ball the way he's capable of, and the defense plays well, then I really think the Redskins will probably win that division, especially with Dallas's current state. But if Dallas gets anything out of that rookie quarterback, then who knows? It could be an interesting matchup as we get some rain here. I'm going to turn my office light on here, get some lighting in here. It'll be interesting. The NFC East will be interesting. And look, see what happens. Last year was this, every year you go in looking at the AFC North, Steelers, Bengals, Ravens, should be a 3-team race again. Should be interesting. So, I mean, those are just some of the things to think about as you go through. And you you look into this, no Peyton Manning, Tom Brady gone for 4 weeks. You're going to see an early season focused on, some of the younger talent in the league. And that's kind of cool to think about. How do the Patriots now? The Patriots do get a little bit of luck because they don't have the toughest schedule without Brady. Arizona is a tough game for them, but that's really the only one that really I think is going to be tough for them. I think they can pull off winning the other three. I can envision a scenario where when Brady comes back, they're 3-1, and obviously that's fine. And look, even if the Patriots were to go 2-2, they're still going to be in pretty good position unless the Jets or the Bills get off and running, which is going to be very hard to do with their schedule. So, and those are just among some of the highlights, things you're looking at. And again, it's going to be, if you're looking for general overview themes of the season, I think it's the same theme that we've had the last few years. So much of this game now is passing the football, and these kind of things, and in all sports, things change. You go through like in baseball, went through a home run offensive period. Now you're going through a pitching, defense, sabermetric kind of period, which we're slowly kind of coming out of now. Basketball, it's a little bit more 3-point shooting now and stuff like that, but it'll come back down to earth. So these things happen. In the NFL, sometimes you have defense. It's more about defense and running the football, grittiness. And then you go through more wide open periods where it's about the quarterback play and protecting the quarterback, getting the most out of your quarterback, being able to pass the ball downfield, explosiveness, athleticism, and that's what we're in right now. You get these young players, you got these young quarterbacks with big arms, and it's become it's become a passing game, passing league, and that's really what it's become about. It's not about. And if you can get time of possession, I guess it's great. But, you don't see too many teams worry about time of possession anymore. You don't. It's limiting possessions, and that kind of thing, which used to be part of that gritty kind of game. And really just keeping things, limiting possessions, defense, that kind of thing, grittiness. You don't get that anymore. It's more of a wide open kind of game now, throwing the football downfield, explosiveness. You look at the team, look at Denver last year. That's kind of what they did, Once they got Manning wasn't great, but they got plays downfield and they made it happen when they had to. Arizona does that. Seattle's even gotten the habit of maybe doing that now, get more playmaker for the Lions. Patriots now, they never used to be that kind of team, but they've been over the last few years. We used to criticize, but it's what works. It's what works. The Giants used to be game at that. And, if they ever get back to that, then that'll be good for them. It's what the league is now. Explosiveness, big plays downfield, and just, that's what it's about. It really is. You still have to play good, hard-nosed defense, and if you can shut down some of these big passing games, then you got something. But It really is a quarterback's kind of league. It's more of a power league, more of an athleticism, explosive now. And I look for that to continue this season. I really do. I really do. Another big topic, and I'm just going to bring this up because it's big news today, is Tim Tebow, who's now switched sports to baseball and got signed by the Mets today to a minor league deal. So we congratulate him on that. I think it's a good move for media, for attention, but I really think he could do some things. I really do. So, good for him. And again, that's going to be something that will parallel, between NFL and baseball going forward. And it'd be cool. A cool thing to have. A cool thing. He's a good guy. Takes things seriously. And all the guy's done is win. In his career, people knock him, but all he does. When he was in Denver, they won. They won, and that's the bottom line. So I thought I should bring that up because it's kind of like an elephant in the room with the Tim Tebow thing going on this morning. Now, if you look at the season, who do you think potential Super Bowl contenders, whatever. Look, I think you can look at the perennial contenders. You look at the Patriots, you look at the Steelers, Ravens if they get hot. You can look at the Bengals if they ever finally decide to break through the glass ceiling, they could get in there. Seattle is obviously, a lot of people think they're the best team in the NFC, along with Arizona as well. Those two teams look like the strength of the NFC. The Packers is a very popular pick. If they're healthy, you'd have to consider them. Those are among the teams. And then you got to think of surprises. Will anybody surprise you and jump into the fray? Maybe a team like the Chiefs, probably, breaking forward here and not just contending, but being, it's a mix. I don't expect much out of Denver, but I guess, if they get some quarterback position, they're perfectly capable of everything else they have. Maybe the Colts even, if they made enough improvements, I think those are some of the teams you look at for that. And that's really all you can really imagine. And, really, and you heard me talk about this a lot over the first few weeks of the season. Look, I don't believe that no game matters. They all matter. But I also don't think you can panic either. Okay. You want to get out of the gate well. You want to, if you can, everybody wants to be unbeaten. Everybody wants to get off to a good start, maybe 8-1 or something. Let's get off to a good start because it means it's less work for you to handle later. But you don't panic if you go 0-3. All right, you don't want to be 0-3, but it's happened. We've seen some teams go on and do great things 0-3. Don't shame being 0-3. I mean, it's not, your season's not over if you're 0-3. Your season's not over if you're 2-2 or 1-2 or whatever. Right? It's a 16-game schedule. All right. Now, where you are at the halfway point of the season is important. Where you are 3/4 of the way through the season is important because if you're not in the mix at either one of those points, then you're in trouble. If you're 4-4 at the halfway point of the season, then you pretty much are looking at, you got to rattle off. You probably have to go about 6-2 in your last 8 if you really want the best chance. And even then, that might be pushing it. If you go into week 12 and you're, I don't know, 12 and you're, let's say you're 8-4 or 8-3. That's not bad. I mean, again, it's it really is. You look at yourself at these stages of the season, and you look at the NFL season. In my mind, this is the way I look at it, in 4-game increments. Okay, where you are, week 4. Let's see where we're at. Okay, are we around first? Are we in the mix? Are we in a wild card mix? Okay, great. That's good. You're in first, great. If you're right there for a wild card, great. Okay, still good. Or are we week 8? Still in first? Oh, great. Right. If not in first, are we still right there for a while? Maybe a game out, 2 games out or something? Oh, okay, great. That's great. Where are we at week 12? We still are we in first place? Oh, great. Well, week 12, we got 4 weeks left and we're in first place. That probably means we're going to make it if we just finish strong here. Okay, let's say you're not in first place. Let's say you're a game out of wild card. You're still right there. Let's say you're 4 games out of wild card and you're not making it. Let's say you're 2 games out of wild card. You got to win out. Probably the best chance. So, I mean, you take it in spurts. You take it in 4-week increments and look at your season. The first 4 weeks is really about getting your bearings, getting your feet wet, forging team chemistry, gelling together, that kind of thing. It's exploration, but you still have to try to find ways to win. Second part of the season, second 4 weeks is, all right, let's get ourselves, let's come together here, get ourselves on a roll. Let's get ourselves in a position at the halfway point. You got to trade deadlines. If we have to make any changes, or you know what, if this is just not our year, if we're just not good, then we can see what we have and we can, or if not, you want to have an idea, especially if you're one of these middle tier teams, if you got to rebuild or not, so that by week 8 you can start to go, all right, the rest of the season we're just going to start the rookies here, and not just keep putting people out there that might not have a stake in your future. In a lot of ways, that halfway point of the season is more for those teams, those middle tier teams, to decide whether they're going to give up on their season or not, and then play out the rest of the string playing younger players or whatever the case may be. And you look at week 12. Week 8 to week 12, it's all about putting yourself in the best position to lock up that playoff spot. And then, obviously, the last 4 weeks is your stretch run. So that's the way I've always envisioned the season. You look at it that way. And I think if spots, 4 parts, 4-week parts, then I think it makes it a little bit easier, and you can kind of put in some kind of perspective. So, all right, so I've talked enough generalities about the league and what kind of season, look at the whole season and all that kind of stuff. And obviously looked at some of these teams, pointed out some of these teams, the divisions, and, told you some teams that could be in the hunt for Super Bowls. I mentioned some sweepers already. You look at some sweepers already, the Rams, Oakland could be one. You look, maybe a team like the Chargers breaks through a little bit finally and decides not to just be an 8-8 team. Maybe Chicago has a surprising year. Those are some of the teams. Tampa Bay could be one. You look at those kind of teams as possible sweepers or surprises. At least those are the ones I think of anyway. They're real younger, but they're not so young that they don't, they have some experience, but they're not so young that you can't imagine them making a run, that kind of thing. So with all that being said, we've spoken enough generalities. Let's jump to and we kind of overviewed the season. So let's look at week 1 and what's on tap. And again, we start off tonight on NBC with the kickoff special. And it's a good game. It's a good, solid game for week 1 between the Carolina Panthers and the Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos. This game taking place in Denver. And look, Simeon's going to get his first chance here. I always promise him the job. We'll see what he gets. He looked good. If Denver gets anything out of him, if he plays well this year, then Denver's going to be a team. The defense is still just as good. They built themselves more about defense the last year, and it showed. It showed. We saw what happened last year. Won the Super Bowl. So if their defense plays up to par and they get anything out of the quarterback, Denver's going to be there and they'll probably win that division. And really, what's going to help Simeon too is if they run the ball effectively. If they run the ball effectively, then it takes a little bit of pressure off them too. This game tonight, I think, though, will be a little bit more lower scoring. It's first week out, and look, both these teams can be explosive. If Simeon plays well, then Denver's offense can still be explosive. Cam Newton showed you that Carolina's offense last year could be explosive, even though I think they're more of that down trenches kind of team, that kind of gritty kind of team. They showed you last year that they can also be offensively explosive, and look, probably against Denver, look to do that. They'll probably be looking downfield because they know in the trenches they might see a lot of resistance there. So I expect tonight's game to be really, really, really intense, really good, really well. Maybe not the most well played, but again, it's week 1. Sometimes you're just not going to see that kind of stuff from some teams, so, especially these kind of teams who are, especially defensively. where they really get after it, and they're just they really can be hard hitting and physical when they want to be going after the quarterback, and that's what you're going to see tonight on defense from both these teams. It's going to be should be a good matchup here tonight. A very good matchup. That it really, to me, it really just depends on how Simeon plays, especially against a really good defensive team like Carolina. This is a good test for a young quarterback, especially in week one. If he can play well again in this situation, and at home too, it helps. Being at home will help him, but. If he can play well here, I think this is good confidence build for him and a good sign for Denver if he can play well here. If he plays well here, I think Denver can win tonight, and then I think Carolina will win. I do think the game will be pretty competitive, though, and I don't think it'll be as high scoring as it would be if it was in week 6 or week 7. But I expect a good game, and I'm gonna pick Carolina only because I think Simeon's gonna have some growing pains. But if he plays well, then I think Denver wins this game. I think if he plays well, Denver's the better team. I personally think that. That's just me, though. So I expect a good game here tonight between Denver and Carolina. Both these teams are going to be playoff. And Carolina's another team that you could see winning the Super Bowl this year. Then you got a bunch of matches on Sunday. Some games don't look good at all. Green Bay, Jacksonville. Green Bay should win that one easily. Minnesota, Tennessee. We'll see. Minnesota's got Bradford there. It depends. If Bradford stays healthy and plays well, then Minnesota can probably stay in enough to get like a wild card, but they won't win the division. We'll see what Tennessee team shows up. Is Tennessee going to finally kind of come of age a little bit, play well? If they do, then Tennessee can win that game and do some things this year. That really is a game of between two teams that you just don't know what you're going to get this year. For a lot of reasons. For Minnesota, not for a lot of reasons, for different reasons. Minnesota, it's for health. With their quarterback position, due to injury being a problem. For Tennessee, it's will they finally play consistently and play up to what people think they maybe can play like. At the outset, I think that I'm gonna say Minnesota squeezes out a win there, and I think it'll probably be an ugly game. But again, if Tennessee shows up and plays and plays like people thought they probably should have played the last couple of years, then maybe they win that game. Miami at Seattle. Seattle's win that one easily. Tough game for Miami to start with. Tough game for Miami to start with. Seattle's going to be out of mission this year because I think a lot of people they think a lot of people are doubting them now. And hey, they did take a step back last year, but I expect them to be back. A lot of people think they're going to be the best team in the NFC and go to the Super Bowl again. So, but I think Seattle easily wins that game. Easily, not even close. There's a couple, and those are some of the games that I think don't have are the least interesting. There's a lot of intriguing games in week 1. Buffalo at Baltimore on CBS. That's an intriguing game. That is an intriguing game. That's a game that, look, we'll see. When Baltimore's healthy, they're usually right there as a Super Bowl contender, and they are. And I think they're going to be trying. And they're at home. That's I think they're going to be out there for a lot to prove this year. I like Baltimore in this game, although you can't discount Buffalo. The quarterback got hurt at the end of last year. They kind of fell off after a good start last year. They just got to play with consistency. If Buffalo plays with consistency, they'll be in the playoff mix. If they don't, then they won't. But I'm picking Baltimore in this game because I think they're going to be very motivated. I think when Baltimore's healthy, they're the better team, obviously, because it's a team a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. So, Buffalo at Baltimore is in that 1 o'clock window on CBS. Green Bay at Jacksonville was also in that 1 o'clock p.m. window on Fox. I already talked about that game. Another game in the 1 o'clock p.m. window. This one on Fox. Chicago at Houston. I think it's an interesting match because these are two teams that, two teams that could be in the playoff hunt. Houston surprised people last year. I don't know if they'll do that again. I don't like their chance to do it again, but if the Colts fold again, then they'll be right there. They're the best team, the team most equipped to be there. They still got issues at the quarterback position. Defensively, I think they're strong. If I don't know if they have enough offensive weapons, that's still a concern of mine. But I think they have enough to stay in, especially with the Colts falter. Chicago, I think, is going to be much better this year. Again, with Chicago, the biggest thing is always health. What will Cutler do? and consistency. And that's been something that they haven't had over the last few years. If they can never get that, then they'll be right up there competing with Green Bay. That's really what it comes down to. And it's a tough division because you got Minnesota there, and if Minnesota gets anything out of Bradford, if he stays healthy and he plays well, then Minnesota's going to be in the mix. Detroit will probably be in the mix because you expect them to have a little bit better year. So you know what? It's not easy in that division. You have to play consistently, and if you don't, you're going to be sent to the bottom. So Chicago really has to come up bigger. This is an interesting game. I actually like Chicago because, again, when healthy, I think they're a good team. And they're healthy right now for the most part. And with them healthy, even though they're on the road, I think they're far better than Houston, who I think a lot of problems and really just needs a lot of help if they ever are going to be in the playoff mix. It's like they had last year, a lot of help last year. That's how they stayed in the playoff mix. So I like Chicago in that game against Houston. Cleveland at Philadelphia is also in the 1 o'clock window on CBS. Philly at home. Philly still has a lot of playmakers. Obviously, they got younger at the quarterback position. Bradford's now gone. Look, I think if Philly has so many playmakers on that team that I think it's not going to take long for them offensively to get gel together. It's really going to be a question of defense and getting and look, I think they'll be. They're going to be in a much better situation. And not look, the situation with Chip Kelly was toxic. They needed to change. And now they did. I think a lot of those players are going to respond. I think Philly's going to have a good week 1, and they are playing Cleveland, who is very much rebuilding here. So this really, unless Philly just falls apart, and I think they have too many playmakers for that, Philly should win this game. It should be an ugly game, really, for Cleveland. But again, this Philly gets a little bit of a softball here, and then after this, it's not going to be that easy. But again, I don't think it's going to be a long rebuilding effort for Philly this year. I think you're going to see them make some strides, especially on the offensive end, pretty early on here because, again, they have too many playmakers for it to take too long for them to develop together. So another 1 o'clock p.m. game is on Fox from Atlanta. It's Tampa Bay at Atlanta. If Tampa Bay has any designs on being competitive this year and being a potential playoff team, they want to win this game. Make a statement right here. When you play in Atlanta, it's very tough. Obviously, Atlanta, New Orleans, in that division are very tough places to play. The Saints and the Falcons notoriously are tough to beat at home. Although Atlanta showed vulnerabilities there, as is New Orleans in the last few years. Tampa, look, they've been young the last couple of years. They got a little more experience there. They do still have some experience there. They have a nice little, I think they have a nice little blend where I think they have enough to be able to kind of, if they get in a playoff hunt, they could probably keep themselves together and stay in it. It really is going to depend if they can get off to a good start. They're a very gritty team. I think Tampa Bay could be a sweeper this year. I really do, but I think they're one of those teams that would have to get out of the gate good. A couple years ago, I remember Arizona had that turnaround and became competitive maybe a year earlier than people thought. And how they did it was they had an unbeaten season. They're 10-0. Now, I'm not saying you have to go 10-0 to kind of get out of the gate well, but I think Tampa Bay is one of those teams that maybe want to start off 5-1 or 6-1 or something like that. Get themselves enough of a lead, where if things get tough, they won't fall off. I do think they have enough experience in that locker room to prevent themselves from completely falling off if they were in that situation. But I think it makes it a little bit easier if you do get yourself out in front of it. So if you want to make a statement, they'll win this game. I think Tampa Bay has and remember, Tampa Bay is notorious for upsetting teams in that division. The problem is they don't follow up on it usually pretty well. So I actually think this could be an interesting game. I think defensively they'll really, really hang on Atlanta. Really, what it's going to come down to is whether they can score enough at Atlanta. Atlanta's, again, I talk about this all the time. They're like the Bengals. They're a fundamentally sound football team that doesn't beat themselves. So you got to work extra hard to beat them. They're not explosive by any means, but they don't make too many mistakes. They're very cautious and very safe with the ball, and that's something that if you're a team facing, you got to remember. And I think when you look at this, you just go, all right, don't try to do too much, and just be smart. If you play smart, you have a chance to win. And that's what Tampa Bay has to do. I am going to pick Atlanta here, but I think this would be a close game. And I'm picking Atlanta because they're at home, basically. I think it'll be a close game, but I think this is a game to watch for an upset here. And again, Tampa Bay's notorious for doing that to the teams in their division. So, but I am picking Atlanta in that game. I already mentioned Minnesota, Tennessee. I'll pick Minnesota. That's another 1 o'clock game that went on Fox. I'll pick Minnesota only because Tennessee has let everybody down so much in the last 2 years. And even with their quarterback situation, I think Minnesota probably gets something out of Bradford in week 1. So I take Minnesota there. Bengals at the Jets, 1 o'clock p.m. on CBS. That's probably one of my favorite games to look at this weekend. Because the Bengals, are used to getting off to good starts, and then they kind of go through a rut, and then, they held off last year, won the West and everything, but you know what? They still haven't broken that glass, and you have to wonder for the Bengals when do you realize that, how long is your window? We know you can win games in the regular season. When are you going to make the big jump? And you have to wonder if at some point there'll be some kind of letdown, even in the regular season, So this, to me, is an important game for the Bengals because you know what? You don't want to stop getting off to good starts. You want to keep getting off to good starts. But at the same time, you want to see how the Bengals respond to another disappointment. And the Jets were a much improved team last year. Defensively, they're really strong, and they do play very smart, and they're very smart with their possessions. So, look, if the Jets win this game, it'll give them a big boost, beating a potential playoff team right out of the gate, and a perennial contender. And for the Bengals, this is a game that if they win, it should give them some confidence because a team that could be in the playoff mix you beat. And you show that you didn't have a letdown despite yet another playoff disappointment. So psychologically, I think this is a big kind of psychological game for both teams, I think. I am going to pick the Bengals only because I think at their best, they're better. But this is kind of a crapshoot kind of game. And it being at MetLife Stadium kind of makes it a little bit more of a difficult matchup for the Bengals too, because you're playing on the road against a team that is pretty solid. Oakland at New Orleans, another 1 o'clock p.m. game on Fox. Most of your games in the 1 o'clock window on Sunday. Look, if this were on the road, I would give Oakland a puncher's chance because Oakland's a good team. A good team. I won't say a great team, but they're a solid, good team, I think. They showed a lot of strides last year. They really improved. I like, with Palmer there. I think they're going to show. I think they're going to be a team to watch. It could be a potential sweeper team this year. So, but playing in New Orleans, very tough to win there. I don't care if defensively you get after them. They're very tough to, and I know Drew Brees is older. I know that, they don't have as many playmakers, but I still think they're explosive enough to win, to put up some points. And they're another team like the Ravens and like some other perennial contenders that fell off last year and have a lot to prove. I like New Orleans in this game, although I think Oakland will keep it competitive for a good amount of time. And Oakland's still going to be a team to watch, even if they lose in week 1. But I like New Orleans here. The last game in the 1 o'clock window, this went on CBS from Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City. It's Kansas City playing at home against San Diego, a divisional matchup. San Diego at Kansas City here. I like Kansas City here only because, again, I think they're just far more consistent. You can't trust San Diego. You just can't trust. Every time you do, they let you down. They've graduated from, playing super, super well and letting you down in the playoffs to being this team that, kind of just is inconsistent, is always around 8-8, 9, whatever. It's 8 or 9 wins. They just always miss the playoffs. And that's where they always end up. At some point, you wonder if they're going to, again, once it's like the Bengals. If Bengals make the playoffs, they just disappoint you there. At one point, when does your window close? Kansas City made strides last year with Andy Reid and Alex Smith. They got a very solid football team. They play a little bit more consistently, and I think they realize that, look, they got off to a good start last year. They would have won that divisions, and I think they're going to try to really make an effort to get off to a good start here. And they know with Denver not having Peyton Manning there and now Brock Osweiler, they know that this could be their division to be had. So I think they're going to come out with a little bit of a confidence, a boost. I like Kansas City in this game. I think Kansas City's going to have a great year this year. They're always one of my teams that I stand behind. And I like what they have the potential to do this year. So I like Kansas City in this game. Miami at Seattle, 4:05 p.m. on CBS. First game in that 4 o'clock window. I already talked about this game. Seattle's win this one easily. Miami's one of those weird teams that they usually follow up a bad season with a season where they kind of stay in the playoff hunt. Sometimes they sneak in. I wouldn't be surprised to see them kind of hang around the playoff hunt where everybody kind of goes, hey, Miami's still in, and I don't think they'll sneak in, but I think they'll hang around. And they've done that before where they've snuck in and hung around long enough and snuck in. So don't be surprised if you see them and get to week 14 and they're like a game out of a playoff and like, hey, what? Don't be surprised if that happens. I don't think it will, especially since the Jets are better, the Bills are better. It's not as easy as it was because before the Jets were bad and the Bills were bad. It was a little bit easier, but you still got the Patriots in there too. But just don't be surprised if you look in week 14 and you see Miami kind of in the mix still because they do have the capability to be able to do something like that. If things break their way. Detroit at Indianapolis, 4:25 p.m. on Fox. Indy gets this game at home. Obviously, it's not going to really face Detroit playing in a building like Lucas Oil Stadium because they play in a building similar. This should be a very look. I know it's week 1, and you're gonna have some growing pains, some ugly play, but these two teams are probably gonna. This is probably gonna be the biggest offensive game. It's gonna be a light show. It really is, and especially in that building. And the Colts have a lot to prove. They're healthy now. They want to prove that they're back. They want to prove that they're healthy. And they want to show you. And look, the Colts are going to go as far as Andrew Luck takes them and that offensive line takes them. Because if they protect Andrew Luck and let him be able to do whatever the hell he wants to do, I think that they can at least get to the AFC title game. So that's really what they got to be able to do. So, but I like Indy in this game, although, again, if that offensive line doesn't protect Andrew Luck, who knows what can happen? Detroit could probably sneak an upset. Really, the Colts' season is Andrew Luck and that offensive line. That's really it was their season last year. It's gonna be their season this year. So, 4:25 p.m. on Fox. One of the bigger, probably these next two games are probably the biggest games of week 1, other than tonight's game, obviously. From AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. 4:25 p.m. on Fox. Giants at Cowboys. Big rivalry game. Giants no longer with Tom Coughlin on the sidelines, rebuilding. Cowboys without Tony Romo for at least the bulk of the season. Rookie quarterback. What are you going to do? Look, we'll see. Even though the Giants still have Coughlin, they still have Eli Manning, they still have a lot of playmakers. Really, if Dallas's defense can keep them in the game and they get anything out of the quarterback, then Dallas could easily win this game. If their defense doesn't play well and they get nothing out of the quarterback, then the Giants will probably sneak a win here. It really a lot. I mean, look, Dallas' season depends on their other. They have a lot of other strengths. They have a good they have a lot of defensive playmaking. They still have enough offensive playmakers, with rookie quarterback to do some things. But if they get something out of that quarterback, and if they play well in the other positions you expect them to play well, then they can still win this division and be competitive, even without Romo. But those things have got to happen. And they have to happen in this game against the Giants, or they're not going to win. It's a tough game to call because I think Dallas still has enough playmakers, and I'm going to assume. And I like I like the little things I've heard and seen concerning the quarterback. So I'm gonna take a leap of faith here because the Giants are going to be in a little bit of rebuilding mode, despite and again the Giants do have playmakers. I'm going to say Dallas ekes out a win here at home. But it's a tough game to call. The Sunday night football game from Glendale, 8:30 p.m. on NBC Sunday night. New England at Arizona. Look, New England, even without Brady, will probably make this more of a game than it should be. Their defense will do what it can. They do have enough playmakers, and look, even with no Brady, they're going to be able to score some points. I still think Arizona wins this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think they'll win it easily, though. I think they'll win it by enough that it's not really in doubt at the end. Arizona is an elite team. I expect Arizona to be very much in the mix, be right up there with Seattle, contending for that division crown. I think this is the only game in this non-Brady stretch that the Patriots will lose. And I think they'll keep it closer than it should be. So, but anyway, I do think Arizona will win this game. And those are your Sunday games. Monday, you got two matchups. The first one's easily better than the second. The first matchup, the Steelers at the Redskins, 7:10 p.m. on ESPN. This game, a home game for Washington. Again, Washington, in my opinion, it's their division to lose. If Cousins plays the way he's capable of and their defense plays the way he's capable of, with the playmakers that they have on both sides of the ball, Washington has the potential to be the most consistent team in this division. Really, Washington should win 10 games easily and not even make this a thing. But we all have seen in the NFC East, there always seems to be one of these kind of scratch and grind kind of divisions. So who knows? And obviously, you have to keep everybody healthy too. But now they get a tough matchup here playing the Steelers, who last year returned to form in a lot of ways, played a lot more consistently last year. Pittsburgh oftentimes is Pittsburgh's a tough team to play wherever you play them, but they are a little bit more vulnerable on the road. And the Redskins, this is a tough environment's tough team to match up with. If Cousins Cousins is an explosive quarterback. If they can get 20 or more points off the Steelers, okay, then Washington will probably be able to win this game because defensively they'll be able to match up with the Steelers. I truly believe that. It really is going to depend if Washington can score enough to beat the Steelers. If Washington can score over 20 points, I think Washington wins this game. If they don't, I think the Steelers win this game. That's not to say it's a guarantee. If Washington scores 20 points, they win. But I think I tend to think that if they do score over 20 points, then it's a very high likelihood that they're having their way with the Pittsburgh defense a little bit, and they'll probably be able to win the game. So I'm gonna pick, because they're at home and because I really buy into the explosiveness of Kirk Cousins and their defense, and because I think Washington is gonna understand that this really is an opportunity for them. This is their division to lose. Because of that, I'm gonna pick Washington here, because again, Steelers are real easy to play on the road, though they're not that far away from home. But again, this is the Steelers you're talking about. I can never write them off. But I will pick Washington. This is the kind of, I mean, I think the Steelers are more of the safer choice, but I'll pick Washington to go on kind of a limb. And then the second game, I don't think it's going to be much of a game. But then again, the second game of the Monday night premiere is usually not. The Rams at the 49ers, 10:20 p.m. again on ESPN. This game, a home game for the 49ers. Again, the 49ers, I don't expect to compete this year, although you have to wonder, is the Kaepernick thing going to be a distraction? How will that play into things? How will they react to Chip Kelly, who had a disastrous run in Philadelphia? The Rams were a team last year that played spoiler in a number of ways, beat a couple good teams last year. I like the Rams here. I think the Rams will win. I think they'll win easily. They got good coaching. We all know with Jeff Fisher. They have enough playmakers. I think the Rams win this game easily. But I think a lot of eyes are going to be on this game because of obviously Kaepernick and seeing what Chip Kelly does and how the 49ers respond to what was a horrible season last year. So we'll see how it works out. But I like the Rams, and I don't think it'll be much of a game. And that's your Week 1 schedule. That's your Week 1 schedule. Again, some games that really shouldn't amount to much. Probably won't be good games. A couple of really premier matchups, Giants-Cowboys, for example, and then a couple of intriguing games that, could, at the end of the season, could prove to be important. So it should be interesting. It should be an interesting Week 1. Not as many big matchups as last year, I don't think, but still a fairly solid Week 1. And again, I said there'd be differences in the show. This run, I kind of just showed you. I kind of just made the picks as we talked about the games as we went along, kind of consolidated it a little bit. And since we don't have Jeff Tech doing the picks now too, I can kind of do that. So there was your NFL picks and your kind of NFL Week 1 preview and analysis here on this Week 1 as we start tonight. So again, that was a little bit more efficient. We got a couple things done all at once. Picks, looking at the schedule, looking at the games, all that we got done in one swoop. So that's kind of what I meant by being a little more efficient, which we can afford to do now because of different circumstances. So, all right, so we talked a lot about the NFL. I mentioned that we're going to try to do a little bit more college football on this show. I did a little bit of that on the primetime show last week. We'll do a little bit of that now. I said that I'd talk a little bit about the season itself as an overview. I didn't really do that last week. I'm not. I'm not. There's not really a lot you can say. I do think what we saw, is I talked about this last year. The first week of this playoff system, first year of this playoff system, the regular season wasn't so good until late. Last few weeks of the season, and then it got really awesome, and then it carried into the playoffs and the bowl season, which was phenomenal. And then last year you had a really good regular season right down to the end, which was awesome. Lots of movement in the rankings and everything. It was so exciting. And then the bowl season ended up being complete and utter garbage. It was boring and bad games all over the place. And then the playoffs were bad. So, it's kind of been a back and forth here. It'd be nice if you can get that full season where the regular season's good and the bowl season's good and the playoff season's good. If you get that, then great. And I'm hoping that's what you get this year. And I think we have the potential to do that. I think there's a lot more teams in the mix this year than there were the last 2 years. And some brand name teams that are looking to jump into the fray and be contenders again, like Michigan and Georgia, and it makes things a little bit interesting. Obviously, there's been some controversies already, Notre Dame and everything that's been going on there. And how that impacts them, it already looks like it's impacted them. So, those things will play themselves out. Texas with a big win over Notre Dame last week, as they're trying to put themselves in the mix. And then you got some teams that are like Houston, who are not teams you have seen in recent years be in the mix. Louisville looks like they're in the way back in the fold. Wisconsin, then you got teams like Alabama, who are right up there as usual again. Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State. So it really is a mix of teams that have been contending a lot in the last few years, and some teams that wouldn't expect to be up there, and then some teams that are trying to return to being dominant, like Michigan, and Texas, that kind of thing. So it's a nice little mix. And then you got teams in the last few years that have surprised, like TCU and Iowa and Baylor, and they're all still in the top 25, and they're all in the mix. So to me, there's a lot of teams in this mix that have potential to be a playoff team. Oklahoma's there, we forget about mentioning them. Washington, LSU's kind of on the outer fringe, but they could play into a Tennessee. I mean, there's some teams. And you come off a opening week, and that makes it interesting when you have so many teams, brand name teams trying to get back in the mix, brand name teams that are still continuing to be at the top, some new teams, some fresh teams, some teams from the last few years that are kind of on the edge. So it makes for a nice mix, should make for an entertaining season. And again, it'd be nice if we get a complete season and carry it through. We'll see if that materializes. And so that's, you look at the season, that's just kind of some thoughts I have there. Not much I can really say, again, because we already kind of started. So with the season anyway. And then you look at week one, and I mentioned last week on the primetime show, I said there was a lot of interesting games in quite a few interesting games in week one. You saw it, like Notre Dame lost to Texas. That's a huge boom for Texas, and Notre Dame and everything that's been going on there. That's a huge loss for them. And Louisville put on a show in their first week, which you expect them to given the competition. Alabama just destroyed USC. USC wanted to make a statement. They made a statement the wrong way. Clemson survived Auburn. That a tough game. Houston made a huge statement against Oklahoma. And made it abundantly clear that they're going to be very much in the mix. Wisconsin beating LSU made a big statement. Ohio State put on a show. Michigan put on a show. A&M beating UCLA, which was a nice little great game there, overtime finish there, was kind of a statement in and of itself, So some teams made some statements. Georgia putting away North Carolina, and jumping up in the polls. Then we mentioned the Notre Dame Texas game, which was 50-47 in double overtime, a classic, really, in a lot of ways. Florida State beating Ole Miss. So again, a lot of big wins for some of these teams, and a lot of statements made, and a lot of big performances. And it was an interesting week one. Again, as I mentioned earlier, college football trying to do what college basketball, NFL, and a lot of sports do now, which is they try to get you interested early, get some big games on the schedule. You saw some big games last week, and this week you got a couple interesting ones as well here in week two. You got UCF and Michigan, which a lot of people look. Michigan should win this one easily, but some people got some. I guess are worried about UCF against Michigan. I think some people think UCF might stay in that game. I don't know where they're getting it from, but so I guess that's a game worth checking out. Let's see what else is on the schedule. Not as many big games this week, that's for sure. Virginia Tech, Tennessee. It's a game worth watching. Syracuse, Louisville. I know a lot of people don't put a lot of faith in Syracuse from a football standpoint, but they got a new coach. They are playing more of a different offensive style. Get a nice test here against Louisville. Louisville, look good in week one, so that's something that bears watching. That game, I would say, would be interesting to watch. Tulsa, Ohio State might be interesting. Ohio State's a huge favorite. You never know. There's not a lot of big games in week two. There's not a lot to talk about. And even the games I mentioned could end up being blowouts. It's just that those are the ones that people tend to be talking the most about and thinking that might be the best chance at, maybe becoming a decent game, I suppose. So not a whole lot of interesting college football games in week two. Not like week one when there was quite a few. They called it the biggest college football opening weekend. It was because there's a lot of big games. And then they followed up with a kind of a lackluster week two. Although there are a couple of games like I just highlighted that could end up surprising and being interesting. And the ones I mentioned were the ones that I think many people feel have the best chance to be that. But, from the outset, most of these games aren't really interesting. Now, contrast that with week three. Next week, you got Florida State, Louisville. That should be good. Alabama, Ole Miss. Pittsburgh, Oklahoma State could end up being pretty decent. Colorado, Michigan could end up being decent. Oregon, Nebraska could be decent. A&M, Auburn could be good. Michigan State, Notre Dame. Ohio State, Oklahoma. So, you know what? Texas, Cal. You know what? So week one ends up being fairly good. Week two ends up being horrible. And week three looks pretty damn good too. So, hey, you know what? The first 2 out of 3 weeks feature some good matchups. Hey, you know what? We have to alternate. Week one brings good matches. Week two gives us a break. Week three gives us, hey, I guess it's okay. Maybe they just don't want to have to compete with the NFL. They don't want to blow their load in week two against NFL's week one. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But anyway. So not too many big games in week two, but next week we got some big games. So the games I did mention are the potential to be the best games if they end up surprising and end up being competitive, So that's really all I can say about it. I mean, there's really no good college football games this weekend. So I guess it's an NFL weekend. Hey, last week belonged to college football, lots of good games. This week belongs to the NFL. And then next week it'll be kind of back and forth, Some good college football games, some good NFL games. It'll be a balance again. I'll be right with the world. But like I said, I do want to take it. I do want to try to make an attempt at getting a little bit of college football in here every week, even if we can't do a whole lot. And if it's a week like this, you can't really do a whole lot because there's just not too many good games going in week two. But, we did an overview of the season. We looked back at last week, kind of gave you an overview of what's coming up. So, you know what? Fairly productive. So at least we got some of it in. Again, I want to try to get some of that in every week if we can, just to be fair, because it's a football blitz show. If you're going to talk about the pros, you should probably talk about college too. And now that college football is pretty interesting with the playoffs, it makes sense to kind of do it more of it. So, all right. So with all that, we covered all ends of the spectrum here. I think we are done for this football blitz show. The show is over. That does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to the show. You continue to have your voice heard. You can email us your feedback, reactions, comments, the things that were talked about on the show, or your topic ideas or breaking news items you want us to cover or talk about. Any of those things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember, you got hashtags that we provide for you, or you can use your own. You can create your own. Just don't be disrespectful or insulting. But the ones that we do ask you to use we like is hashtag ITSpotlight411, hashtag ITS5. That one's our 5th anniversary on the air hashtag. Or if you're talking about the Football Blitz, you can do hashtag ITS Football Blitz. Again, you can also create your own hashtag as well, as long as you're not disrespectful or insulting. That's all we ask. We encourage you to, you can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. Make sure you like our page upon finding it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show. Now that the Football Blitz is back, obviously, like I said, we'll try to have this every Friday. Most of the time, unless there's a change. And I always try to let you know ahead of time if there is a change in schedule. But if there isn't, I have no way else. I have really no other way to reach everybody and let them know other than social media. So you want to make sure that you follow us on social media in case there's any kind of delay or postponement, any kind of thing like that. If you like to keep up with our show, look back at past episodes, look back at classic episodes, whether you're a longtime fan that wants to check out really old classic episodes or even recent episodes and keep up with them, or maybe miss an episode or miss part of an episode, or maybe you're a new fan wants to look back at episodes, look back at old episodes, look back at episodes, to look and watch episodes or listen to episodes for the first time, maybe you missed a part of an episode, whatever the case may be, whatever kind of fan you are, whatever you, if you're just keeping up with our show, looking back at old episodes, whatever the case, we have a couple of ways to do that. If you're more of a fan of streaming and seeing us on screen, then you might want to check us out here on Google Plus and YouTube, where you can find every episode we ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube, which is everything from mid-October of last year right up until today's episode. All available here. You can watch them anytime you wish. Keep up with them. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 here on Google Plus and YouTube. And search for In the Spotlight 411 on Google Plus and YouTube. You'll have access to those episodes. If you're more of a fan of audio podcasting, listening to us, not necessarily seeing us, and maybe you're interested in more than just the last year of the show. Maybe you're interested in classic episodes, maybe from 2010 from our Blog Talk Radio run, or from 2012 during our Talk Shoe run, whatever the case may be. You can go to Podbean and iTunes, our main host sites, search for In the Spotlight 411, and on those sites you will find every episode we've ever done from October 2010 all the way up into today's episode. Every episode from Blog Talk Radio, Talk Shoe, from Google Plus, YouTube, all available for you. Our Google Plus YouTube episodes are transferred into audio format and available on those sites. They're in order from the most recent to the oldest. This search for In the Spotlight 411 on Podbean and iTunes, and search for In the Spotlight 411 on Podbean and iTunes. And when you do, you'll have access to those episodes anytime you wish on there. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, and iTunes. Always you can keep up with our show and look back at classic episodes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both sites. You can search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites. I want to thank myself for a great show and pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and your continued contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be listening to this later, thank you to you as well. This is the first episode of Football Blitz. Again, we'll be trying to do this every Friday unless otherwise noted. Today's the only day we did it on Thursday today because of the whole kickoff thing tonight with the NFL, so I thought it'd be nice to do it today. We are not done for today, though. We have another In the Spotlight 411 show coming at you here tonight, our usual Thursday night primetime show coming at you here at 8 o'clock from Eastern Time, streaming live here on Google Plus and YouTube. Tonight's a big night for us as we announce the In the Spotlight TV Award nominations and start the process of deciding the winners of the TV awards, and of course give you the information you all need to participate in the live voted awards. Those awards will be voted on live during the In the Spotlight TV Awards on September 22nd. So you want to make sure you tune in for tonight. It is a big show. So until then, I hope you have a great afternoon. We'll see you back here at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, streaming live here on Google Plus and YouTube, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tonight. And as for the next Football Blitz, next Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time is when that will be. Have a good afternoon, everyone. We'll see you tonight.